Welcome back to my channel, everybody. I'm Joel Kellen, and instead of just making another movie review, today I'm going to do something different. So, by the time that I'm recording this, we're about 4 to 5 days away from the new Candyman movie coming out. I still haven't decided to watch it yet. I might or I might not, but that's besides the point. So anyway, every time I was watching the trailers for the newest Candyman, I always kept thinking back at how similar this made me think of Halloween 2018. And that made me go back over the last few years of horror films, and it kind of made me come to the realization or conclusion that the horror franchise is dead. Well, scratch that. Not really dead, more like just resurrected as a Frankenstein's monster, and the doctor is Hollywood. Now, this isn't anything new. Hollywood has done this with plenty of different genres. Action, romance films, the superhero genre. Sometimes they work, like after the superhero films all failed during the 90s, they got revamped with Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy and the MCU. And other times, in my opinion, they haven't worked. Case in point, the horror films. Now, there are a few good ones out there, such as the recent Spiral, or at least I liked it. I do know that there are a few people who didn't. But overall, there are horror films that are just hit and miss. I do remember somebody saying that Blumhouse helped revive the horror genre, and that was around the time that Halloween 2018 came out. After I saw the Halloween 2018 film, I remember thinking about that comment, and my response is that no, Blumhouse didn't revive the horror genre. If anything, they just put it on life support. Now, Halloween 2018 was a pretty good film. I don't think that it's one of the best of the Halloween franchise. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. It is one of the best of the Halloween franchise. But I don't think it's one of the best horror films that I've seen in recent years. But basically, that's just Hollywood for you. They take the original ideas from decades ago, and they either remake it or create sequels upon sequels like decades later. Like, look at the Star Wars films. The series should have been done in the 80s. The prequels, well, I liked the prequels, but that's because I grew up on those. But in my opinion, they should have left the series alone. I'm not sure if my stance on that would be the same if I did like the Disney sequels, but that's neither here nor there at this point. And like, the horror films are the biggest culprits of these, because you have like Friday the 13th, you got Chucky, you have Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers. They each have about like 7, 8, 9 sequels. Chucky's getting his own TV show in a couple months. Meanwhile, there's already sequel movies planned, and he's already had a remake just 2 years ago that is reportedly getting its own sequel as well. Now, I will admit that the remake did actually do pretty well. They did a lot of ideas that I thought were pretty good and worked out well, such as the fact that Chucky doesn't start out evil. Rather, he kind of inadvertently learns how to be evil because of his obsession with being Andy's best friend. But my point still stands that Hollywood has officially run out of ideas, and it's no more blatant than with the horror genre. Now, on a side note, and this isn't entirely Hollywood's fault. Every other idea that they have had that is admittedly original, people have not liked. Greatest example, in my opinion, is the 2012 film Dread. That movie was fantastic in every way. Carl Urban was awesome as the title character. Olivia Thirlby played a great Judge Anderson. Even Lena Headey played a terrific original character with the mob boss Mama. And the film was gritty, dark, action-packed, basically anything that you ever wanted from a Judge Dredd movie, it was in there, as opposed to the Sylvester Stallone 1995 film. Unfortunately, they didn't do well in theaters, which is a shame because that was a really good film. Now, there are a lot of factors that go into that, like, say, it's based on a British comic book, so a lot of people from America wouldn't know it, or the only exposure they got from Judge Dredd was that shitty 95 Sylvester Stallone film. The point still stands that Dredd was a fantastic film, and unfortunately, we never got a sequel. Meanwhile, you got films like Halloween, Child's Play, and now Candyman, or even taken a bit further, you have Johnny Knoxville making a fourth Jackass film that's coming out in a couple months. Meanwhile, great films like Carl Urban's Dredd isn't getting a single sequel. Speaking of Hollywood running out of ideas, but it's also partially the audience's fault. And going even further than just Dredd, a better example for this was actually Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, where the studios actually tried to do something new, but people hated that, so we went back and now we have like 5, 6, 7 more Michael Myers movies. That's why we had Halloween 2018, that's why we're getting Halloween Kills. Now, I'm gonna see Halloween Kills, mostly because of all the kills. Like, I'm shamelessly gonna say that I'm just there for the gory kills. I'm not right there for the story. But my point in that is that the studios actually tried to do something new with the franchise in making it an anthology, but people hated that, and they brought back Michael Myers immediately in the sequel. Now, I will admit, though, the blame is also with the studio because apparently they actually had Michael Myers in the marketing, or at least that's what I heard. So they're guilty of false advertisement. I personally also think that what they should have done is they should have just combined the first 2 films into one. Personally, if they just made Halloween and Halloween 2 just one gigantic film, and then made Season of the Witch as the second film in the anthology series, like they were originally planning, then I think that the whole idea about having a new story with each entry would have gone over better with the fans. Like, I mean, just think about what would have happened if they played their cards right on that one. Like, you would have had the first film be like a 3-hour-long horror slasher thriller with the young woman Jamie Lee Curtis trying to stay alive from Michael Myers. Then in the second film, you would have had that whole plot about the Halloween masks killing the kids with bugs. And then, like, after that, the possibilities could have been endless. Like, you could have done, like, a horror film about, like, aliens and robots, and as long as it had Halloween in there, people would have been perfectly fine with it, because at that point, Halloween wouldn't have been just synonymous with Michael Myers. But that's just my opinion. So as far as I know, there isn't really a definite way to fix the horror genre in the way where they come up with new ideas where they don't have to keep going after the same IP or the same property again and again. Mostly because, like, we as the audience, like, we would rather see movies that we are more familiar with. But I think you guys get the point. And sorry, I got way off track with the horror film series. I think one way to, like, reinvigorate the horror genre would be using the method of shooting in first person. We've already seen, like, these found footage films, such as the Blair Witch Project, that do that all the time. And I agree on that it's been used before, but I don't exactly want to do it like found footage. Like more like directly first person where you're seeing through someone's eyes. So I remember kind of talking with a friend a few years ago about why the Doom movies suck. And this was right after Doom Annihilation came out. So I mentioned to him that like maybe they should just try shooting the entire movie in first person, like Hardcore Henry. And he instantly cut me off saying that the Hardcore Henry movie was like just freaking terrible. Now, a few weeks ago, I finally got around to watching Hardcore Henry. And while I don't agree with him, I don't really disagree with him either. And the reason why I say that is because when I saw the film, I remember kind of being really excited for the first few minutes. And then it was basically just jumping around constantly from his angle only. And to make matters worse, he never talked. Around halfway through watching the film, I remember thinking like, I would rather play this as a video game than just watch it. And I'm pretty sure that the sentiment would be the exact same if someone actually did a Doom video game set entirely in first person. So the way that I think you could sidestep around that is to still shoot in first person, just not entirely in first person. And I've actually done this with a few of my video shorts that I've done in the past, where I shoot the really important scenes in first person, but for about the rest of the short film, I've shot it from like the third person where you're actually following the characters. So the way I would definitely shoot that would be like you're either the victim, and you can actually see in first person, like, actually getting killed by the slasher villain, or you're a friend of the victim and you're seeing it through their eyes, and you're seeing your friend getting mutilated and killed before the slasher turns his attention to you. And this actually ties into back during when I reviewed Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Because like I said during there, really, the scariest part for me was at the very beginning when Ethan first finds Mia, and when she's possessed by Evelyn, she starts slamming her head against the wall as if some invisible force is controlling her, and you're pretty much helpless to do anything. Like, to me, that was the scariest moment of the entire game. Well, that and the boss fight with Marguerite Baker. The best way to like convey like horror again in the movies would be to shoot it from a first person perspective and to truly show that helplessness or hopeless when you're looking through the victim's eyes and you're seeing other people dying in front of you and you can't do anything about it. Oh, and I guess on a side note, one thing about the first person is always make sure to have it through the victim's eyes and not the killer's eyes. And the reason I'm saying that is because I remember back watching the original Halloween film. To be honest, that intro scene where you're seeing through Michael Myers' eyes as a child as he's killing his sister, I did not think that scene was scary. But that's just my opinion. But I personally don't think that's scary when you're seeing through the killer's eyes, because like that basically translates to you as the audience being the killer. Like, you have the power there. It did work in the fact that it sold the shock value that Michael Myers was a child at the time, but my point was it wasn't really scary because of the fact that, well, again, you were watching it through the killer's eyes, especially when Michael was just looking at the knife while he's killing his sister. To me, that just erased all creepiness from the scene. So, all in all, in my opinion, the horror genre is dying. It's on its last legs. At this point, it's just being revived into like an undead zombie state, as is the rest of Hollywood these days. And to me, the best way to like actually inject new life into it would not be to reboot like previous franchises. It would be to shoot new films in like the first person, but not entirely as found footage, and to always shoot it from the victim's viewpoint, but also be sure to shoot like third person point of views so that it doesn't get too repetitive. That's basically it for me. What are your guys' thoughts? Do you agree with what I said? Disagree? Let me know down in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video.